I was watering my roses when my mother-in-law, Diana, walked in like she owned the place. She carried her fancy handbag and wore a smile that always meant trouble. "Alexandra, dear," she said sweetly, "I have great news." I put down my watering can, already suspicious. After 8 years of marriage to her son, Michael, I knew her great news was never good for me. "I've sold the house," she announced proudly, "about a great price. The buyers will take it in 30 days. I froze. Our home. The house Michael and I had spent years fixing up. The place where we planned to start a family. And here was Diana, acting like it was just another casual topic. "Interesting," I said, keeping my voice calm. "And how did you sell a house that isn't yours?" Diana smiled wider. "Oh, don't be difficult, dear. The house is in Michael's name, and as his mother, I'm just helping him make smart choices. He needs a fresh start. This place is holding him back. The money will help him start his new life with Jessica." My heart stopped. Jessica, Michael's 25-year-old assistant, the one Deanna kept praising. Michael agreed to this? I asked, already knowing the answer. Lately, he'd been distant, working late, barely talking to me. "Of course," Diana said, pulling out some papers. "He signed the agreement last week." Jessica helped him see reason. "They're perfect together. Sometimes we have to accept change, Alexandra. You just don't fit in our family anymore." I felt oddly calm. Diana had no idea of the conversation I'd had with Michael's father before he passed away, or the legal papers he left me. "You're right, Diana," I said softly. "Things do change." She looked confused for a moment but quickly recovered. "I'm glad you understand. The buyers want to see the house next week. Make sure it looks nice." I picked up my watering can. "Of course. I'll make sure everything is exactly as it should be." She hesitated, probably expecting tears or a fight. Instead, I was calm, and that unsettled her. "Good," she said, though her smile wasn't as confident. "You should start packing." As she left, I made 2 phone calls, one to James Harrison, our family lawyer, and another to Robert Chen, the private investigator I had hired 3 months ago. That evening, Michael came home and looked surprised to see me calmly reading a book. "Your mother stopped by," I said. "She told me about the house." Michael ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit. "Alex, I can explain." "No need," I interrupted. "I get it. You and Jessica need a fresh start. This house is in your way. That's what your mother said, right?" He looked guilty. "It's not like that. Things haven't been good between us. Jessica, she understands me." "She's 25, Michael. You're 42, I said. "But that's not really the issue, is it? The issue is that you think you can sell this house without my permission." "The house is in my name," he said firmly. "Mom found cash buyers. It's done, Alex. I'm sorry, but maybe this is for the best." I stood up, carefully marking my page in my book. "You know what's funny about clean breaks, Michael? They only work if everything is actually clean." He frowned, confused. "What does that mean?" "You'll find out soon enough," I said, walking upstairs. "Oh, and don't worry about the house being ready for the buyers next week. I'll make sure everything is exactly as it should be." As I climbed the stairs, I felt his eyes on me, trying to figure out why I wasn't falling apart. Like his mother, he had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I met James Harrison at his office downtown. He had been the family's lawyer for years and knew all of Michael's father's final decisions. "They really think they can sell the house?" James asked, adjusting his glasses as he looked over the listing agreement. "Diana already found buyers," I said, sipping my coffee. "She expects me to have everything ready for a walkthrough next week." James shook his head and pulled out a thick folder. "I assume you haven't told them about this?" He placed an important document on the desk. I smiled. "Not yet. Howard asked me to keep this quiet unless absolutely necessary. I think this situation qualifies." 2 years ago, before he passed away, my father-in-law called me to his hospital room. Unlike Deanna, he wasn't blind to Michael's flaws. He worried about his son's decisions and what might happen when he was gone. "I've made arrangements," Howard told me. "The house isn't just in Michael's name. I made sure of that. You'll be protected. James has the paperwork." Looking at those documents now, I felt grateful for his foresight. The house had been a wedding gift, but it was legally owned by both Michael and me. That meant Michael couldn't sell it without my consent. Diana's listing agreement was worthless. James picked up his phone. Should I call Diana's real estate agent now, or do you want to let them carry on a little longer? I thought about Diana's smug smile and Michael's betrayal. Let's wait, I decided. I want to see what else they try. That afternoon, my private investigator, Robert Chen, sent me his latest report. The evidence was solid: hotel receipts, secret meetings, and proof that Michael had been using his firm's money to pay for his affair with Jessica. I forwarded it all to James and went home, where I found moving boxes stacked in the foyer. Diana had sent them as a hint that I should start packing. Instead, I went to my office, unlocking the secret compartment in my desk. Inside were the most important papers: the house deed, Howard's letters, and the USB drive containing Robert's findings. Diana might control people with lies and manipulation, but I had something stronger: facts and legal truth. That night, Michael came home late, smelling like expensive perfume. He hesitated when he saw the moving boxes still untouched. "Alex," he said in a patronizing tone, "you're making this harder on yourself. Mom is just trying to help." I glanced up from my laptop, where I was reviewing the latest photos of him and Jessica at a hotel that afternoon. "How thoughtful of her," I said. "And how was your meeting with the Thompson client today?" He froze, just for a second. There was no Thompson client. He had used that excuse to meet Jessica. "Fine," he said quickly. "Just fine. Look, about the house." "Don't worry about the house, Michael," I cut him off. "Everything will work out exactly as it should." His eyes narrowed. "What does that mean? Why are you so calm?" I closed my laptop and met his gaze. "Your father taught me a lot before he passed. He understood people. Marriage. Trust." Michael shifted uncomfortably. Howard had always seen his weaknesses and had tried to make him a better man. In the end, he had planned for the worst. "Dad's been gone for 2 years," Michael muttered. "This has nothing to do with him." "You'd be surprised," I said, heading upstairs. That night, I remembered Howard's last words. "Don't let them bully you, Alex. You're stronger than all of them combined." Back then, I didn't fully understand what he meant. Now I did. The next morning, Diana arrived unannounced again, this time with the buyers. A young couple awkwardly followed her as she proudly showed them around, talking about all the changes they could make. I let her finish before speaking up. "I hope you haven't paid a deposit yet," I said to the couple, "because this house isn't actually for sale." Diana spun around, furious. "Alexandra, don't be ridiculous. Michael already." "Michael," I interrupted, "doesn't have the legal right to sell this house without me." The buyers looked worried and quickly left. Diana's face turned red with anger. "How dare you interfere? This sale is what Michael needs." I smiled, thinking of the documents safely in James's office. "No, Diana. What Michael needs is to learn that actions have consequences. And trust me, those lessons are just beginning." The following Monday, I sat in James Harrison's conference room, watching Diana and Michael's faces as they processed what the lawyer had just told them. The color had drained from Diana's face, while Michael kept shaking his head in disbelief. "This can't be legal," Diana sputtered, her manicured fingers crumpling the property deed James had placed before them. "Howard would never." "Howard did exactly that," James interrupted, sliding his reading glasses up his nose. "The house requires both Michael and Alexandra's signatures for any sale to be valid. Furthermore," he pulled out another document, "Howard's will specifically states that in the event of any attempted unauthorized sale, full ownership transfers to Alexandra alone." Michael slumped in his chair. "Dad knew," he muttered. "He knew I'd mess this up somehow. He knew his son," I corrected quietly, "and he knew his wife." I looked pointedly at Diana, who was still shaking her head in denial. "That's not all," James continued, producing the file Robert Chen had compiled. "We also have evidence of financial impropriety at the firm, specifically related to expenses charged for non-existent client meetings." Michael's head snapped up. I could see the moment he realized what that meant. All those hotel rooms and expensive dinners with Jessica, charged to the firm's accounts. "The board of partners would be very interested in these expense reports," James noted. "Not to mention the ethics committee of the State Bar Association." "You wouldn't," Michael whispered, but his voice lacked conviction. "No, I wouldn't," I agreed. "Not if you agree to my terms." Diana tried to rally. "Terms? You ungrateful." "Quiet, Mom," Michael cut her off, surprising us all. For the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. What terms, Alex? I laid out my conditions clearly. First, you'll sign a quitclaim deed transferring the house entirely to me. Second, you'll agree to an uncontested divorce with a fair division of our other assets. Third, I turned to Diana, you will never again interfere in my life or my property. And if we refuse? Diana demanded, though her voice trembled slightly. I opened my laptop and turned it to face them. On the screen was a draft email to the firm's board of partners, with Robert's full investigation attached. My finger hovered over the send button. Your choice, I said simply. The fight seemed to drain out of Michael all at once. You really planned for everything, didn't you? No, I corrected him. Your father did. He loved you, Michael, but he saw who you really were. He wanted to protect both of us, me from your betrayal, and you from your own worst impulses. Diana stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. This is blackmail. This is consequences, James replied calmly. I've drawn up all the necessary paperwork. Shall we proceed? An hour later, it was done. Michael signed everything without further protest, while Diana sat in stony silence. As they stood to leave, Michael paused at the door. I'm sorry, Alex, he said quietly. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. I know, I replied, but sometimes sorry isn't enough. After they left, James handed me the final signed documents. Howard would be proud, he said warmly. You handled this exactly as he hoped you would. That evening, I sat on my back porch, looking out at the garden Howard had helped me plant years ago. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Jessica had left him after learning about the scandal at the firm. Diana had apparently retreated to her sister's house in Palm Springs, telling her friends she needed a spiritual retreat. I poured myself a glass of Howard's favorite whiskey, the bottle he'd given me for safekeeping before he died. You were right, I said to the quiet evening air, about everything. 2 months later, I transformed the house into truly my own space. Michael's law firm had quietly asked him to resign to avoid public scandal, and he'd moved to another state to start over. Diana's carefully curated social circle had crumbled once the truth about her schemes came out. As for me, I was finally at peace in my home, surrounded by memories of the one person in that family who had truly cared about doing the right thing. Howard's last gift hadn't just been the house. It had been the strength to stand up for myself and the wisdom to know when to use it. Sometimes, I thought as I tended to my roses, the best revenge isn't fighting back immediately. It's waiting patiently until your opponents have dug their own graves, then simply stepping aside to let them fall in. The house stands as a testament to that lesson, and to the power of quiet strength over loud manipulation. Diana and Michael had underestimated me, just as they had underestimated Howard's foresight. Their mistake had cost them everything, while I remained exactly where I belonged, in the home that was always meant to be mine. Sarah, we need to talk, my husband, Michael said. His voice sounded sad, but I knew he was pretending. I looked up from my laptop where I was planning our home renovation. His mother, Linda, stood beside him, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. My stomach tightened. I knew this act. Linda was very good at fake crying. The doctor says I have 6 months to live, Linda said, her voice shaking. I don't want to be alone at the end. She fell into our armchair, the same one I had seen her measuring last week, complaining it didn't match her decor. My name is Sarah Parker, and at 34, I had finally bought my dream home. After my parents died in a car accident 2 years ago, I used my inheritance to buy a beautiful Victorian house. It needed work, but it was mine. Linda never liked that. Mom needs to move in with us, Michael said firmly. We can turn your art studio into her bedroom. My chest tightened. The art studio was special to me. It was my dream to paint there. The sunlight coming through the windows was perfect. I know this is unexpected, Linda sniffled, but family sticks together in hard times. She had never treated me as family in the 8 years I had been married to Michael. She always saw me as the woman who had trapped her son. Which doctor told you this? I asked carefully. Maybe we should get a second opinion. Linda hesitated, then said, Dr. Thompson. But I trust him. I nodded. Dr. Thompson, the same doctor who supposedly diagnosed her with a rare disease last year, just before Michael and I were supposed to go to Italy. We canceled our trip to take care of her, but 2 weeks later she was fine. I need to think about this, I said. Think about it, Michael shouted. My mother is dying. Where is your compassion? I looked at my husband. He had always chosen his mother over me. Something inside me changed. Yes, I need to think about it, I said firmly. This is my house too. Actually, Linda said sweetly, since Michael is your husband, it's his house too, and a son's duty to his mother. The house is in my name only, I cut in. I bought it with my inheritance. Linda's smile faded. But that's not the point. This is a big decision, and I won't rush into it. I walked outside to the garden, my favorite place. Sitting on a bench, I pulled out my phone and called Dr. Thompson's office. I'm sorry, the receptionist said. We have no patient records for a Linda Morrison. I thanked her and hung up. My suspicions were right. I called my sister, Emma, a nurse. Can you check something for me? I asked. 2 days later, I had my answer. Linda had not been to any oncologist. She had no cancer, no diagnosis. She was lying. For a week, I watched as Linda and Michael planned her move. She brought boxes over, talked about painting the walls. Michael barely spoke to me, acting as if I was cruel for hesitating. Then came the family dinner. Linda invited everyone. Michael's sisters, their husbands, aunts, uncles, cousins. She wanted them to pressure me. She stood up, pretending to be emotional. She announced her diagnosis and said how I had graciously agreed to let her move in. Everyone praised Michael for being such a good son. Then I stood up. My hands were steady as I lifted my glass. I have something to say. Linda smiled, expecting me to agree. Instead, I pulled out a folder and met her eyes. I spoke to Dr. Thompson's office, I said, and every other oncologist in the state. Linda's face turned pale. The dining room went silent. Linda's fork dropped onto her plate, the clatter echoing in the tense air. Her face, already pale, turned almost white. I don't understand, she stammered, reaching for her water with shaking hands. Dr. Thompson doesn't share patient details. That's interesting, I said calmly, because Dr. Thompson retired 3 years ago. His clinic doesn't even exist anymore. Michael stood up suddenly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Sarah, what are you doing? I opened my folder and pulled out the papers. I checked with every cancer hospital within 100 miles. No Linda Morrison has been diagnosed with cancer. No Linda Morrison has even been tested for it. The room filled with whispers. Linda's sister, Patricia, leaned forward, frowning. Linda, is this true? She's lying? Linda shouted, standing up. She's trying to turn you all against me because she doesn't want me in her fancy house. Actually, I said, sliding the papers across the table, I'm telling the truth. These are the hospital records. You can call and check for yourselves. Michael grabbed the documents, his hands shaking. This has to be wrong. Mom wouldn't. But she would, his sister Jessica said quietly. Remember when she faked pneumonia before your wedding? Or the heart problem when you got that job in Seattle? Linda's face twisted with anger. Jessica, how dare you? I'm your mother. Yes, you are, Jessica said. And I love you. But this has to stop. The lies, the tricks, the drama, it's not okay. Michael sat down, staring at the papers in his hands. Slowly, the truth sank in. The house, he whispered. You wanted the house. Linda lost control. Of course I wanted the house. She doesn't deserve it. She used her inheritance to buy that beautiful home while I'm stuck in my tiny ranch house. It's not fair. Not fair? I repeated, keeping my voice level. Like it wasn't fair when you tried to convince Michael to challenge my inheritance. Or when you told everyone at church I was flaunting my parents' death by buying the house. The shocked gasps around the table told me that Linda hadn't shared those particular details with the family. Michael's head snapped up, his eyes wide. You did what? She needed to be put in her place, Linda hissed. Always acting so perfect, so independent. A real wife would have given that money to her husband. Like you gave your inheritance to Dad? Patricia asked, her voice sharp. Oh wait, you didn't get one. Is that what this is really about, Linda? The truth hung heavy in the air. Linda's face crumpled, not in fake tears this time, but in genuine defeat. The careful manipulation she orchestrated was falling apart, exposing years of jealousy and resentment. I just wanted, she started, then stopped, looking lost. You wanted to control everything, like always, Jessica finished. But this time you went too far. Faking cancer? That's cruel, Mom, not just to Sarah, but to everyone who's actually fighting that battle. Michael stood up again, but this time his posture was different, defeated, tired. I think everyone should go home, he said quietly. Mom, I'll drive you. But Michael, Linda protested. No, Mom, not this time. As the family filed out, each person avoiding Linda's desperate gaze, I stayed at the table, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Patricia stopped beside me, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, she said softly. We should have seen it sooner. After everyone left, I began clearing the barely touched dinner plates, the sound of Michael's car starting and pulling away echoing in a quiet house. I wasn't sure if he'd come back tonight. I wasn't sure of anything anymore. But as I stood in my kitchen in my house, I felt something unexpected, relief. The truth was finally out, and with it, the weight of years of subtle manipulation and forced smiles lifted from my shoulders. I walked to the window that overlooked my garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Whatever happened next, I knew I'd done the right thing. My parents had taught me to stand up for myself, and tonight, I finally had. The sound of the front door opening made me turn. Michael stood in the doorway, his face etched with exhaustion and something else. Shame. I dropped her off at home, Michael said, his voice rough. She cried the whole way there, said I was choosing you over her. I stayed silent, watching as he moved into the kitchen, looking lost in the space that had always been our home. He ran his hand over the counter, the one we picked up together during our renovation. But that's not what this is about, is it? He continued. This is about choosing truth over lies. I've been blind, Sarah, so blind. I leaned against the sink, crossing my arms. Yes, you have. All those times she had emergencies, conveniently when we were about to do something important. He shook his head. The tropical disease before our Italy trip, the heart palpitations when I got the Seattle job offer, and now this. She knew what she was doing, I said softly. She always has. Michael looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. How did you stay? Knowing she was manipulating everything, watching me believe her every time. Because I loved you, I replied simply. But Michael, I won't do it anymore. I can't. He nodded, sinking into one of our kitchen chairs. I don't expect you to. What she did, faking cancer, his voice broke. My aunt died of cancer last year. How could she use that? I moved to sit across from him, feeling the weight of this moment. Your mother needs help, Michael. Professional help. This isn't normal behavior. Jessica's already looking into family therapists, he said. She thinks Mom's behavior has gotten worse since Dad died. The need to control everything, to be the center of attention. We sat in silence for a while, the ticking of the kitchen clock marking time as we both processed the evening's events. Finally, Michael reached across the table, his hand open, palm up. I know I don't deserve it, he said quietly, but I'd like a chance to make this right. To be the husband you deserve, not just the son my mother wanted me to be. I looked at his outstretched hand, thinking of all we'd been through. It won't be easy, I warned. There needs to be boundaries. Real ones. I know he agreed. No more emergency visits, no more guilt trips, no more letting her make decisions about our life. And he hesitated, then continued firmly. I think we should go to counseling too. Together. I need to understand how I let this happen, how I hurt you by always putting her first. I felt tears prick at my eyes, not from sadness, but from relief. This was the man I'd married, the one who'd been buried under years of his mother's manipulation. Okay, I said, placing my hand in his. We can try. The next few months weren't easy. Linda alternated between tearful apologies and bitter accusations, but we held firm to our boundaries. Michael started therapy, both with me and on his own, working through years of ingrained patterns. I finished my art studio, filling it with canvases and light. Sometimes, when I'm painting there, I think about that family dinner and how close I came to losing my dream home to Linda's schemes. But then I look at the changes in our lives, the peace, the honesty, the renewed connection between Michael and me, and I know it was worth it. Linda eventually agreed to counseling, though it took Jessica and Patricia's ultimatum to get her there. She's learning slowly to build relationships based on truth rather than manipulation. Last week, she even sent me a card, a real one, apologizing for everything. It's a small step, but it's something. Michael and I finally took that trip to Italy, sending postcards to his mother from every city we visited. When we returned, our house was exactly as we'd left it. No emergencies, no drama, just home. Yesterday, as I worked in my garden, I found the first rosebud of spring pushing through the soil. Like that tiny flower, our family is growing in new ways, healthier ways. It's not perfect, but it's real, and that's all I ever wanted. The house stands as it always has, but now it feels different. It's not just my sanctuary anymore. It's our home, mine and Michael's, built on a foundation of truth and trust. And that's something no manipulation could ever provide.